Americans in when the time comes. And once you understand that, you can see what's happened in the last 9 years, that we've had to move southward. Well, recently I've been fixated on the so-called patriot movement and the anti-tax movement and the Tea Party, the Taxed Enough Already is the acronym. And I'm fascinated at the possible birth of a new political movement northward. So, and that's one thing. Now, the other background I need to say is that is DNOPA. As this country industrialized, they sought safety, which is fair enough, and nothing wrong with that. But there's also something called the Dyne's Nature of Paradox, which I cover in my Secrets of High States book. Paradox is one of the deepest secrets of life, and I can't do it justice in a brief few sentences, but I'll try. But basically, it's getting the opposite of what you intend when it's not meant to be or it's a low state. And that is, for example, when the thing you wanted most in life is what you didn't get. The person you wanted the most you couldn't get, and the one you wanted least you couldn't get rid of. These are examples of paradox. And what happened to the union movement, they were more interested in safety and more than the customer. Not all of them, but some of them. And to the extent they did, when they themselves and their jobs became more important in serving the customer in the high state of service, that's when they began to lose both. They began to lose their safety and their customers. And that's what happened to America. Now, the currency crisis was part of it also, the debasement of currencies against the dollar, which America allowed. Now, whether that was intentional or not, I don't know. But what's happening on that is, with these huge planetary forces converging, America is in very deep trouble. The unions, there's no more left to give. Margaret Thatcher said that socialism ends when they run out of other people's money to spend. So we're coming to some kind of a smash-up. California, for example, the country's this state is bankrupt, and they're still looking to spend more. They just don't get it, that this game is over and that they're going to hit a stone wall. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see bankruptcies of currencies. Greece is already talking about failing on its sovereign debt. California will probably have to file bankruptcy, wipe out all the pension plans, which don't have enough money already to pay off what they've promised. Social Security is bankrupt. If you think you're going to collect your money on Social Security, you better make some other plans also, just in case. Did I answer your question?
You sure did. I want to go on to something that, this is a trend that you've picked up. It's something that I believe in, too, that we're approaching a lot of key inflection points here. One of them is this abundant way of life that we're used to having all these things. We're going to run into what I call resource scarcity. And you talk about in your book a coming power shift from the industrialized nations towards the nations with resources in the ground, the oil producers, the base metals, the rare earth. And as a result of this is going to be a massive redistribution of wealth. And I wonder if you might address that. If you live in a Western developed nation today, we get up in the morning, you flip on the switch, the lights go on, you go to fill your pot of coffee, we expect water to run, but all the things that we have and do are made with raw materials. Let's address that issue.
Sure. Well, it's a very important issue. You have to understand, this is a new century. And in my annual forecast issue of the year 2000, I said this will not simply be more of what happened in the 20th. This is going to be a new game. And power is going to shift to Asia because they don't have the debt that we do, and they're willing to work for much less than we are in an international world. So this country is spoiled rich. We just assume that we can do whatever we want. We just print the money. We want to have a war. That's fine. We need money. Somebody overseas needs money. That's fine. It might be a noble cause, but, charity does begin at home. And if we don't have enough money to save the people in New Orleans, maybe we're closing schools and parks here in California. Maybe we should take care of that before we take care of foreign people. But that's not a stage America is at yet. They just assume they're rich. You have to look at what's going to happen as we approach the end times here. As reality approaches, I think you're going to see, first of all, a sharp spike in interest rates in America, as America has to really pay a lot more for it to borrow money. China's beginning to wake up and drop out of the game. They already hold a smaller amount of American debt. China already owns less American debt than Japan, and that just happened. So we know that China is getting out of the U.S. dollar. and into gold, which is why it's in an uptrend. But that's also into other reality, what I call wealth in the ground, where you can't print, stuff you can't print. Because the problem is, where do you store wealth in a world where wealth is defined as paper you can just print? So what I'm looking toward as I form my ideas, and I keep updating it in the Dines letter as I get more input, but what I'm generally seeing is a shift, a tremendous transfer of wealth, and it's already begun. A lot of people who were rich 10 years ago have less. In America now, there are people living in mansions who can't afford underwear. So there's a hollowing out of America that has not yet been recognized by the world, and certainly not been recognized by our politicians, who just assume they can print whatever they need. What's going to happen, I believe, is that the countries who are awakening to this new paradigm are going to be getting out of paper money, all of it, especially paper dollars, and into wealth in the ground. Which ones? Well, it could be oil, certainly. Oil is going to rise to an infinite price at some point, but also copper. You know, we've never taken an inventory of the planet. How many copper mines are there left? How many tungsten mines? How many titanium mines are left? And what is the population going to be in 50 years? How would that be divvied up? What about the population of China? What if all of them want 3 cars? And India coming right behind them? And Africa and South America? Where's the oil going to come from? Doesn't this say that there's a commodity boom of the first magnitude coming? Doesn't this say that you better, before the rest of the world figures it out, put your money into hard assets of some kind? Not necessarily just gold, but maybe investing in a mine of something that's already scarce. One of the ones I chose for my subscribers to the Dines letter was rare earths. When I first announced it, people didn't even know what rare earths are. Most of them still don't. But let me tell you something. You cannot build a windmill without 700 pounds of neodymium. You can't build a windmill without 2 tons of rare earths. And these people running around saying that wind power is going to save us from an energy crisis don't know what they're talking about. China's going to build them for themselves. And if you want to build one, you're going to have to go to China. I listen to this stuff going on, and I just roll my eyes. People are not connected to reality in this country. Not everybody, but too many of them. And we need to have somebody who is informed. I wrote this book. Look, it doesn't matter to me. I could retire right now if I wanted to. I wrote this book for you. I bequeath it to you. It's my heritage for you. If you want to understand how to try to fix what's going on, this is the book. My Gold Bug book is it. And it will show you where to direct your own assets, but more importantly, to tell the press, to tell other people that this country needs to comprehend, A, that it is uncompetitive, and whatever has to happen, has to happen. If we want to compete in the world, we need to do that. They need to tell them that the printing of the dollars is going to be stopped, it's going to be arrested at some point without notice. That throwing more and more money every year at education that is not working is a fool's game. That what we need to do is sell it to private enterprise and tax it. What we need to do is to have a flat tax, to say 10% for all levels of government. Here, take care of us with it, and that's all you get. If you want to spend more, take it out of something else. We need to just absolutely have a tax revolution of some kind. And I could go on and on. It's all in the book. I've put it out there. It's in print. I've been saying a lot of this stuff for many years. It hasn't done any good, and I have absolutely no hope that I will be able to change it. What I do hope is that maybe this book will survive in the ashes, and when they build the next monetary system, they will have people in it who are not communists.
You also have a chapter, and this is something that is a key concern, and it's called deflation or hyperinflation. If hyperinflation was to develop in the United States, how would you see that unfolding?
I was afraid you'd ask that. I really don't like answering the question because hyperinflations are terrible, and they don't have to happen. The normal cycle is first you have an inflation and then a deflation to correct the overprinting. And we are in a deflation right now, and even now, the government is in a fantasy world. They're talking about negative inflation. They're just afraid to use the word as if they're whistling past the cemetery. And it's this lack of confronting the truth directly and fearlessly that is the problem in society today. And if you just want to hear good news and palliatives, that's fine. Don't ask me. But what's happening is we are now at the tipping point from an inflation into a deflation. The signs of deflation are everywhere. Everything's down. Consumer electronics,